This is our Mentoring Matters discussion room hosted by the Mentoring Club. And our theme today is career and life journeys of mentors in the Mentoring Club. And we are featuring Mo Rubenzahl. The Mentoring Club is a nonprofit organization. Mission is to provide a mentoring community for aspiring and seasoned leaders. Anywhere in the world, we help people find mentors who can guide them to develop the skills they need to achieve their career and life goals. We help mentees fulfill their goals through meaningful work that creates positive impact in the world. As mentees become leaders, our dream is for them to become mentors to others. And as I said earlier, Mo Rubenzahl is one of our mentors. As you can see from the title of the room, he will be covering his journey as marketing practitioner and executive. So, particularly focusing on branding for entrepreneurs and for all of us. A quick background about Mo. Mo is a marketing consultant who works with entrepreneurs to bring big company marketing. His degrees are in engineering, and interestingly, he has moved to marketing and he has spent 40 years as a marketing executive to billion-dollar enterprises. Good morning, Mo, and welcome to the Career and Life Journeys of Mentors series of the Mentoring Club.
Good morning, Liesel. Thank you for having me.
My first question to you is, what makes you get up in the morning?
Professionally, as a marketer, when I was an engineer, I had the usual distrust of marketing people. And I thought that at the time that marketing was pretty subjective. It needed more of an engineering approach. And so that's what my emphasis has been through my whole marketing career. As I began marketing back in the old days before the internet, we really didn't have much to measure. And so marketing was pretty subjective. If you've seen the show Mad Men, Don Draper walks in and he waves his arms, said, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, and everybody would believe him. And now we have data and we have much more sophisticated marketing practices. My role in life is to take that kind of marketing, measurable, sensible marketing that's based on both experience and data, and the kind of marketing that big companies have using expensive tools and fancy best practices, scale those and bring those in a form that entrepreneurs can use to start their businesses so that they can do what makes sense for their business and they can bring marketing into their business.
How did you get started? You have degrees in engineering. Tell us a little bit about your experience as an engineer and what made you move to marketing.
When I work with especially people who are just starting out, is I always emphasize the fact that you don't have to choose one career and stay in that career your whole life. I've had, it depends on how you count them, three or four. And especially when I mentor high school kids and they're looking at college and they're going, oh, should I go into this? Should I go into this? And sometimes they think that it's a lifetime commitment. So my degrees are in electrical engineering. I started off at Hewlett Packard. I was design engineer and I loved it. I spent a lot of my time working with people on how these products ought to be used. And people kept saying, you should go into marketing. You should go into marketing. And I didn't really know why they were saying that. But the reason they were saying it is because of my emphasis on people and wanting to communicate how this stuff works. A lot of engineers will work on the what something is and how it works, and that's their focus. You need to focus on why people need this, need the product, need the service. I just took to it. Just about at that point, they had a desire to take the technology we were using and start marketing it to other divisions within Hewlett Packard. And they said, would you like to do this? I go, okay. And then that was the start of my marketing career. From there to managing a group to do the internal marketing, and then to product marketing, where we were marketing office automation products to the world. From there to a startup company. And the beauty of going to a startup, I was like employee number 6, I think. The beauty of being at a startup like that is I wasn't just the head of marketing, I was marketing. I had a couple of staff. I had to learn everything about marketing and become a general practitioner, right down to doing my own graphics work and writing the manuals and all of the rest. And then from there, it leveraged into a larger corporate marketing role. And then when the internet came along, I started calling myself an internet marketer. We invented that. It's been an interesting ride.
It seems like validation from people around you about what you're really good at influences you to make decisions on career shifts. In your case, it's your ability to describe or provide the value proposition for the products that you're creating,
Mhm.
and you got encouragement from your team or colleagues as well. That sounds really cool in terms of how people are moving from one career to another.
That's an interesting observation you made, Lisa. Sometimes we don't know what's best for us, and we have to learn to listen to others. And you listen, but they don't necessarily know what's best for us, but they often do because they can see us in ways. I got it over and over again. You should be in marketing. You should be in marketing. I'm trying to figure that out. As a young engineer, I didn't particularly trust marketing. And I certainly didn't know what marketing was because I didn't have a marketing education. So yeah, sometimes you have to listen to others because they know us better than we know ourselves.
They can look at us objectively. Let me back up a little bit more. What made you take up engineering?
That was another case of listening to other people because as a high school student, I grew up in upstate New York in a very, very rural community. My dad was a chicken farmer. I loved technology, but at the time, technology was pretty primitive, pretty hard to get your hands on. And I didn't know whether I wanted to do electronics. I really enjoyed chemistry. I was thinking of becoming a chemist, and somebody said, "You should become an engineer." And I went, "What's an engineer?" Growing up in the country, I had no idea. I think I'd heard the term, but I didn't really know what engineers did. And so I went to a science summer program and also to a program that was run by the local utility company where you got to see computers, you got to see technology, you got to see how power worked and electricity. I had some kits that I built and so forth. And bit by bit, it looked more and more interesting. So that by the time I got to college, I knew I wanted to do some kind of engineering, but I didn't know what it was. And then took the introductory classes. The thing that flipped the switch for me was in a class, they were saying, you can do this. And they showed you a methodology where you could take any number of inputs and deliver specific outputs. And I go, oh my God, with this stuff, you can do anything. And that was when the light came on, and then computers came along, and then you totally could do anything. And the idea of being able to do anything, it kind of triggered the Tony Stark in me.
For those people who may be listening to this, who are trying to figure out, am I in the right place? Am I supposed to be in engineering? That would be something worth listening to.
We talk about this often when we're mentoring others and also in trying to figure out what we want to do. There's this follow your passion thing. I think it's especially true for millennials and Gen Z. They hear that so much that they have to have this fire inside about one thing, and then that's what their life is about. I tell them, don't necessarily follow your passion, but find your passions, plural. It's almost never true that you have one and only one passion. Like I loved engineering, but I also knew I loved chemistry. I enjoyed writing, although I wasn't very good at it. I was quite good at drawing, and I loved that too. And I looked at all the passions that I had, all the things I loved to do, and I go, you know what? I like doing this. I like doing this. I like doing this. I like doing this. But you know what? I can make money engineering. I love it, and it's lucrative. So I'm going to do that one, and the others will be my hobbies. I just think it's really important that you know all of the things that you can do and choose which one is going to be your livelihood, remembering that later on in life you can switch. So it turned out that my ability to write and my ability to do art, as I moved into marketing, my engineering knowledge and understanding of technology, and all of the communication skills, they all came together and I used them all.
In the peak of your career, did anybody influence the way that you work, whether as a manager or as a mentor? Did you experience any kind of support in that development track?
I sure did. I had a lot of people who were helping me in various ways. That's funny. I never heard the word mentor. And this was back in the day. Now mentoring is a thing. But I had a number of people who were mentoring me informally. And I wish I had more of a formal mentorship. At the time, as a young professional, I just imagined, oh man, these people, like I thought saw the division manager or a CEO or something, or VP. And I thought, oh, they're too busy. They don't care about me. And I was wrong because now I know somebody who's an executive, if somebody young who's starting out goes, would you mind if I interviewed you and talked to you about how to do this? And you develop that mentoring relationship if you reach out. I just didn't think I could do that. But I did have some people who took interest in me. I remember one time I was at HP, a manufacturing manager, his name was Jim Burns, and he brought me into his group to run this external marketing staff. And he was pretty political. And I had never thought in terms of politics in a corporate environment. He would tell me things like, well, we need to do this. He said, it may not be important, but if we fail to look at it, then here's how it could. And he would look a couple of steps down. It's like a chess game where he's playing several moves ahead. A light came on. I'd never thought in those terms. So he's an example of a mentor. But I would say rather than having a mentor, I had probably at any given time two or three or four mentors who were helping me in different aspects of my career.
I know that you have been mentoring even before the mentoring club. You have been active in giving back. Can you tell us a little bit more about your transition into that stage of giving back?
I would not say that there was a watershed moment. Lisa, when you started the mentoring club, I remember that's the word that you used over and over again, that this is your give back. You have talked on many occasions about your career and how people helped you, and that now you're in a position in your life where you can give back. You've always been a giver. You have a very specific watershed moment where you're doing the big give back. For me, it's been more of a gradual and constant thing, going way, way, way back. I was raised that way. You give and you get. The two, to me, are the same. But when you give of yourself and you help other people, you get an immense return immediately. So I consider something that I've always wanted to do. The obvious charitable work, like being on the board of Child Advocates, which links up mentors and foster youth, or the men's organization that I'm in, Momentum for Men in the San Jose area. It's about creating things of quality to support the world. Hallway conversations can be giving opportunities to mentor and to be mentored, to learn and to give at the same time. So to me, it's all part of the fabric of life.
Can you remember like pivotal moments in your life where you had to make some decisions, both in terms of career and life, that you would like to share with people as a learning experience?
One that comes to me with regard to career was when I left HP to join a startup. A good friend of mine who I'd gone to, actually, he and I got my bachelor's degree and my master's degree together. So I'd known him for a very long time. And he'd left HP to join a startup. And it was successful. They went public. He made a ton of money and he did something major. And then he and the CEO who formed that one decided to do another one, which is crazy, crazy heaped on top of crazy, I think, if you've ever been an entrepreneur. And they said they want somebody to do the marketing. I said, oh, okay. So I did it. To me, that was a leap off of a cliff. But I remembered somebody who had left HP and actually had come back and said, you know what? You go off, you do this thing, and if it fails, you're not dead. You just go do something else. And the price of failure, a lot of people think that a small company, especially an entrepreneur, that the price of failure is very, very high. I don't agree. I don't think it's that high. While you're an entrepreneur, you're working like crazy. You're not making a whole lot of money. That if it fails, you take all that experience, all that learning, and you go on to the next one. Now, in this case, I was fortunate because this startup that I went to, it too went public and was successful. So all good.
Oh, that was lucky.
You say that I had no idea how lucky I was because at the end of it, I was looking for my next job. A friend of mine said, hey, talk to my friend John Stone. He likes to mentor people, and John Stone is a very experienced finance guy. And he said something in the interview I had with him. He said, you're looking at startups. He said, but I think I was like 40, late 40s or something like that at the time. He said, as an investor, if we successfully pick one out of seven, we consider ourselves fortunate. You got to think about how many startups you have left in you. And I go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I should be looking. And he says, you can make a ton of money at a large company. You do not have to go into startups, especially with your level of experience at this point. I just found myself the next day looking at startups still, just because it was in my bones. I just
Mhm.
love the energy of entrepreneurship. But as it turned out, a headhunter picked up my resume off of the web, and I ended up joining a $500 million company. It was pure luck. It made me look like the smartest guy in the room.
For the entrepreneurs and for those of us who are thinking of joining startups, what would be your top advice?
If you're thinking of joining a startup, first of all, it has to do with how you're constructed. There are some people who absolutely should never be in a startup because they're much more organized towards being in a big company. They like having all of the support, they like having a huge number of people, and that's perfectly fine. And there's some people who just love living on the edge. When you're in a startup, you're always on edge. There's an energy to it. But you do have to recognize what the percentages are and consider your age, your family situation. When I went to Vidionics, which is the startup that I joined, I was single. I had good savings from having worked at HP, and I don't live very extravagantly. And there was no reason I couldn't do it. So if I had a family, if I had 3 kids who were teenagers or whatever, but you have to think twice about that and think twice about what your makeup is. I think that it's very important to develop your brand. When I work with clients, one of the things I work with very frequently is brand development. When I was younger, brand was just like a technical term used by marketing, but now hip hop artists talk about their brand, right? The brand has become commonly known. People think of a brand like Coca Cola as being the red and the white and the logo and a tagline. That's the smallest part of the brand. That's the little tiny visible piece. Where brand lives is not in a logo, not in a slogan, not in any of the messaging. Where brand lives is in the minds and the heart of your customers. It's the most expensive, difficult real estate in the world, the real estate inside somebody else's brain. When you think of a brand like, let's say, UPS or Reebok, I say those names and instantly something happens in your gut. It's that instantaneous gut feeling about a company. That's what brand is. Your brand as an individual is just as important as Nike's brand is to them. What I advocate people do is they be deliberate about it. They don't let their brand be whatever it is and be haphazard about it. They think about what their brand is. What are your values? What really matters to you in life? Where are you going? When people think of my name, what is it that I want them to think? I want them to think smart. I want them to think that I'm working on the leading edge in terms of helping companies, give them the kind of branding and the kind of reputation that large companies have. I want them to think about process and procedure and methodologies, how I achieve these things. I want them to think of me as somebody who delivers a marketing program to them that makes them successful way beyond what anyone can do without a process and procedure roadmap oriented marketing program. The point of it being that you need to know your brand, which means you need to design your brand and you need to be deliberate about it.
So, what I'm getting from that is what is this company's mission, vision, and
Yes,
values?
exactly right. Mission, vision, value. That's exactly right. And elevator pitch. I'm a big believer in getting at mission, vision, values by starting with your elevator pitch. Then once you have your mission, vision, values, then you can refine your elevator pitch.
We have one mentee who is starting her company. She's out there to really help out people with disabilities. She started with just being impacted by the relationship she has with her cousin who has Down
That's right.
syndrome. I was just helping her out in terms of figuring out her goals. And then when she said that she wanted to do the startup, I said, "Oh, you probably have to benefit from having a mentoring relationship with Mo." So I referred her to you. So we were co-mentoring her, and I remember that she just mentioned to me that you were challenging her about mission, vision, and values will be reflected in her startup's mission, vision, and values. Looks like for entrepreneurs, if they have a passion about something, it actually transcends from individual to the company. Is that a good way to
Oh,
interpret
yeah.
that?
Totally true. And she's a great example. She just released her first Kickstarter about a week ago, and it's terrific. She was somewhat distracted by aspects of fashion and some other things that her products could do. And I said, your values, your mission is perfect. It grabs at the heart. It's the kind of values, the kind of mission that companies long for, the clarity of her vision. So I coached her to just talk more about what her vision actually is and what her true values actually are. It really worked. It focused the message that she was doing terrifically. As often as not, that small thing that you think is very important is very compelling because people love human values and human stories. I think that was true for her.
I just remembered while you were speaking that, and I was looking at the screen, so I saw Professor Pete when she was getting stressed about putting up her startup and also doing her part-time work. She said, I just need to be able to handle all the stress. So I said, oh, then connect with Professor Pete. She did a LinkedIn post and she mentioned the three of us. I think she has a good support folks in the background with all of us working towards her success as well. I'm really happy with what she has achieved so far, and all credits belong to her because she did all the work. We just were there to support her.
And credit to her for listening to multiple people, synthesizing the advice, turning it into action. Most important, she just stayed so true to her heart and to what really mattered to her.
What would you most like for your mentees to take away from your lesson in your journey?
Follow your heart. Again, that doesn't mean, like, if you love to sing, it doesn't mean you're going to turn singing into a career and go against all odds. Or maybe you are, I don't know. But that what you do matters to you. Like you said earlier, you just get one life. We don't want to waste the time that we have trying to fill somebody else's dream. And we have to find a way to make the dream that we have come true and do something that really matters to us and really, really makes a difference for other people.
More about you. What was a book that you read that played a major influence in how you lived and are living your life? So maybe we can learn from that book too.
Okay. So two come to mind. One is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. That was one that I read when I was quite young. I think it's guys more than women, but I could be wrong on that. A lot of men will say, "Oh yeah, I know that book. Yeah, yeah." It's a funny book because people get different things out of it. What I got is this commitment to quality, to this thing that happens deep inside you when you know you have it right, when you have the product designed right, or you have a plan that's working for other people. There's this thing that happens when it's not clicking that it just doesn't feel right, and it's very hard to perform when it's not quite right. And then the other one, I call it a business book, but nobody else thinks of this as a business book, and that is The Godfather. I talked earlier about when I got some mentoring at HP and I first discovered this whole notion of politics, that you have to think about the organization and how this person has this interest in mind and this person has that interest in mind. It's a lot of pieces that you need to move around and think several moves ahead. At the time, I happened to pick up The Godfather and read that book. For 3 weeks, I was eating nothing but spaghetti because of all the scenes in there where they're cooking spaghetti sauce in the kitchen. Obviously, I'm not murdering anybody or sticking any horses' heads in anybody's bed. The Godfather, in particular, is always thinking about his core value, which is loyalty, how the organization works, and what everybody in the organization and what everybody in the other organizations need. And it's just this phenomenal tapestry of making something work. It's not something that we do in business, but to me, that was a book that was very instrumental to me.
I think it's a combination of strategy or strategic thinking and social psychology. How will the other people react and play their pieces? Most people will look at it as politics, but it's really being strategic or being an architect of how you're going to move around.
That's very well said because when you call it politics, politics is such an ugly thing. It probably has the wrong connotation for what I really mean. So that's a really good point. It's more about strategic thinking and about managing what's going on. At the time when I had the realization about politics, there was somebody in the organization who was trying to sabotage what we were doing for various reasons of his own. And that was the first time I go, you know what? really sometimes is truly politics. And we had to maneuver around him and make it so that his objections were not relevant and didn't interfere with what we were doing. So there is some politics, but I
Mhm.
hear your point. It's probably kind of a dirty word.
For most of people in the industry, yeah, they look at politics in a negative light. As you were describing it, I was thinking, oh, I think he means strategic thinking and social psychology. How will others take it and how it will impact the success of what you want to achieve within the organization? If you're dedicated to your work, then you want positive results.
Yes, exactly right.
The last question is, if you were to write a book about your life's journey so far, what would the title be?
The Godfather 4, how I learned to how I learned to reframe loyalty to make a difference in the world.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you very much for being one of our mentors in the Mentoring Club and also for making a difference in several mentees' lives. I hope we will continue on with this relationship and you being part of an active part of our community for many years to come. Thank you very
And thanks
much.
thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it very much.